Alright, in this video I want to show you how to solve a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. If we have an equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, I can use the quadratic formula. X equal negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all that over 2a. Okay, so you can see that my equation is in this form, so x is equal to this. So I need to figure out what a, b, and c are so I can plug into the formula. Well, a is the number in front of x squared, b is the number in front of x, and c is the constant term. So I get a equals 2, b equals negative 6, and c equals 1. So plugging these into the quadratic formula, I get x equals negative b, no, I'm sorry, b is not 6, b is negative 6. So I get negative b, so that's negative 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared, that's negative 6 squared, minus 4 times a times c, and that's all over 2 times a, or 2 times 2. So now I simplify. So I get x equals negative 6, so that's positive 6, plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 8 over 4. So x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 28 all over 4. And then I'm going to simplify the square root of 28. That simplifies to 6 plus or minus, and then the square root of 28, that's 2 square roots of 7 all over 4. And then I can simplify more because 2 goes into 6 evenly, it goes into 2 evenly, and it goes into 4 evenly. So here I'm left with 3, here I'm left with a 1, and here I'm left with 2. So my final answer will be x equals 3 plus or minus the square root of 7 all over 2. And here's my answer. Let's take a look at one more. Once again, I'm going to use the quadratic formula. I've got to see what a, b, and c are. So you can see a is equal to negative 3, b is equal to negative 2, and c equals negative 5. So plugging this into the quadratic formula, I get x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all that over 2 times a. So I get x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 4, negative 2 squared is 4, and then I have negative 4 times negative 3 is 12 times negative 5 minus 60 over negative 6. So that gives me x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 56 over negative 6. So x equals 2 plus or minus, and then I simplify the square root of negative 56. So since there's a negative under the square root, that's I, and then 56 can be broken up into 4 times 28. So that's going to be 2i times the square root of 14 all over negative 6. And then we notice that 2 goes into each of these evenly, and instead of dividing 2 into each of them, I can divide negative 2. So if I divide negative 2 into each one, I'm left with positive 3, negative 1, and negative 1. But since we have the plus and minus, the negative 1 is just going to change this plus sign to a minus, this minus sign to a plus, so I can leave this as plus or minus. So my final answer is going to be x equal negative 1 plus or minus I square root of 14 all over 3. And there's my final answer. I hope this video helped. Thanks.